I'm Janet Kidd, and I live on Darling's Island, which is a beautiful residential spot, and it's just the other side of Hampton, in case you don't know where it is. I was rather shocked last summer when I found out that an energy company had lease or license to search on Darling's Island, which is entirely residential. So I went to find out who this company was. They're called Windsor Energy Corp. And I went to look them up on the internet, and at the time, the Telegraph Journal was still online, and the only thing I could find out about this company was in reference to meetings that they had had with Bruce Norton. And at the time, this is in articles from 2009, I believe, they were tied in with a company called Itihad, which is, since I still can't find anything else about them on the internet as far as Canada goes, but my understanding was that this other company that was with Windsor somehow, that's undisclosed, was in Canada so that Canadians could invest their money according to Sharia law, I believe. But Windsor Energy Corp, I looked it up the other day. Still no internet history, no internet presence. The website says under construction. When you look in, it supposedly is headquartered in Calgary, and when you look under Calgary businesses, sure enough, it shows up there, but it says approximately 3 employees. And then you phone the phone number, and there is no service for that phone number. There wasn't last year, there wasn't last week when I tried again. No service. So I have no idea. Now there's a gentleman here saying, you know, you should know who you're getting into bed with. I have no idea who these people are. All I have heard is a rather sort of rancorous spewings of one gentleman who seems to be associated with them, and the one who was presumably in charge of the fracking trucks going straight through Sussex. We managed to stop them going through Hampton before the vote, which was, they were going to go through Hampton at 3 o'clock, the vote was at 7 o'clock. We got up on the highway and we stopped them going through Hampton. But I must say, one of the things that I'm extraordinarily grateful for this last year of my life is that I've discovered that once again, I have a brain. After 28 years of motherhood, continuing motherhood, I wasn't sure I still had one, but I have done more research in this last 12 months than I think I ever did at university in 4 years of university. I have met the most extraordinary people that I'm so proud to call my friends, because these people have some of the highest integrity that I have come across. This is an integrity that seems to be lacking in the government and in this industry, which I suppose has been the most disillusioning thing about this whole process is I thought we lived in a democracy.
I've been an emergency physician at Moncton City Hospital for the last 14 years, and prior to that I did my science degree at UNB, plus I did a couple years of nursing before my science degree, and then I became certified in family medicine, and I'm also certified in emergency medicine specialty. And another reason that I wore the white coat is because I just feel a little bit frustrated. I went into this totally unbiased, started doing research on my own. I wasn't on Facebook, I wasn't connected with any anti-shale people or protesters or anything like that. I just, as a physician, started researching and developed very many health concerns, which I think most of you are all aware of the many health concerns that are out there. And I not only went to the protest, I spent $430 to go to the unbiased 2-day scientific forum on June 4th and 5th. And there was about 20 speakers there, and I made it known that I was a physician. I think I was the only physician there other than Dr. Cleary. And I made my health concerns known. I stood up, despite being very intimidated, being surrounded by oil and gas people and politicians. And it was just surprising to me that nobody really came up to me and talked to me. They didn't, except Mark Wiss, and he's still here, one of the guys from the natural gas group. I did commend him. He did come up and introduce himself, which I appreciated. But the politicians did not, and the oil and gas people did not. And I thought, if they have an abundance of peer-reviewed studies, health impact assessments, etc., all the kind of things that would reassure me, and I need more than regulations to reassure me. I need, as a physician, I need more than that. If they have this kind of thing, they should be giving it to me, I think. They should be responding to my letters. They should be calling me. Mark Beliveau has my email. I'm not that hard to find. And I don't think I'm really that intimidating. People, do I look intimidating? People are not usually intimidated by me at all. So I would just encourage them, if they have that information, to get a hold of me. But I know that most of the peer-reviewed information has only started in April 2011, and that's why we need a lot more of it. We need more studies, and that's why we cannot go forward right now. We need a moratorium. The Moncton City Hospital physicians have voted for a moratorium. You probably already know that the College of Family Physicians have also voted for a moratorium, and I would be willing to say that there are going to be more physicians following in this. I went to the Department of Health's meeting that they had last week in Moncton about the future of the healthcare system, and just as a result of being there, I happened to meet a doctor from the Dumont, and we both spoke to Minister Dubé afterwards about our concerns, and I know that there are physicians at the Dumont as well who have concerns about this. And I asked Minister Dubé, what exactly is it going to take to get a moratorium? Who's actually in charge of that? Who gets to decide? And she said it would have to be the entire legislature. So I would encourage you to try to contact your MLAs with your concerns or your questions and try to get answers. I'm not sure how you get them to respond, but all I can do is say try. And send your concerns into the natural gas group, because we have now until September 16th, right?
September 18th.
September 18th, right? And as far as there being no meetings in the city, I did express concerns about that to Mark, and Mark is very good to respond to all my concerns, I must say. He does get back to you on email. And in the cities, people are just as concerned as people in the country, from what I can tell. And I have family and friends in rural areas. I, myself and other people I know, have cottages in rural areas. I drive through Norton when I take my kids to camp down the way at Caton's Island. I have lots of friends who spend the summer down the way at Beulah, and I have friends in Sussex. Our food is grown in rural areas. I don't think we or McCain's want anything happening to that food in the rural areas. The air around us is going to, in the rural areas, is going to come to Moncton, and the ozone layer is we are affected by that as well. The wastewater treatment facility, where will this be? Well, I met one man who said it's going to be in Moncton. So I think that could have an effect. And from what I've been told, there's 20% of that water, once you put it through the industrial wastewater treatment facility, that cannot be refracked. And that's what I was told by my source in Alberta. It will be toxic waste, and this man did not know what he was going to do with it. I have patients from all around the province who come to me when they have a major trauma. When I'm on call, working in the emergency department overnight at 3 in the morning, I am the only physician there. There's only one doctor on all night, and so you get hit by a truck or anything around the province, you will be sent to me in Moncton or somebody in St. John. So to say that the physicians in Moncton or people in Moncton are not going to be affected in any way of this, I know medically lots of patients come from around the province to Moncton for not just trauma, but many other things. So the physicians in the major centers definitely are interested in any potential health problems of patients all over the province. Our Hippocratic oath says, first do no harm, and I wish that was the oath of a lot more people. There was a lot of talk there was a lot of talk at the Forum E about trust, and they said that they knew that people don't trust government or they don't trust industry, that they trust people like professors, university people. I think, maybe there should be another Forum E, maybe there should be another big educational session, and I think that myself and many other people that spoke tonight would have quite a few suggestions about who should be speaking at that forum from around North America. I know some of the people I trust are people who've actually worked in this industry, people like Anthony Ingraffia, Dr. Robert Howarth, who testified to U.S. Congress, and people like Maxine Dagg, who worked in the industry for 7 years. We need health impact assessments, not just environmental impact assessments. There's only one that I know of that was done, and that was in Colorado. If there are many, many places that are very happy with this method of natural gas, then I'm sure that the wealthy oil and gas companies would have the money to make some videos of those happy places and show them to them. I'm aware of what's gone on at all of these public meetings because I've just been curious and talked to people who went to them. And I watched the one under Durham Bridge online. I went to the Bucktush meeting, and I think that I know what the overwhelming sentiment has been, and it's been quite negative towards this industry going forward. And when I was at the Forum E, they said, the people are wise. The people need the information, and when the people get the information, they will be wise. I think the people have spoken. Quebec has a moratorium. Nova Scotia has a moratorium. Quebec is looking at renewable ways to get energy. I know it's not easy and it's a huge topic. Germany, I think some other places, New York is looking at the Solutions Project to renewable energy. I think we have to look more at that. And as far as the economics, I know there's a lot of things up in the air with regards to that. And one person that I spoke to who's in the know said that the density of wells that you would have to have in southeastern New Brunswick to make this viable is very high. It's not just a few little wells, they need to frack a lot. So I'm not on Facebook. I'm still not on Facebook. I'm not trying to push my agenda on Facebook. But if you want to get a hold of me, you can talk to me after. And if you're having heat exhaustion, I can look after that too. To wrap up, I know that in a couple generations, most of us will be gone or very old, and our grandchildren and our ancestors will be looking back to see who said what and did what or didn't say anything. And I know that many of you will sleep well at night, and I will sleep well at night knowing that I spoke up. Thank you.
I'm a retired human resource consultant, and I guess I'm very disappointed in the province in terms of using shale gas development as our savior in terms of economics and creating jobs. Because if you look at the industry, the oil and gas industry, it's very capital intensive. So there are very few jobs created per $1 million invested. If you look at renewables, on the contrary, there are many more jobs created. We've had lots of success stories in New Brunswick, companies in the IT sector like Radian 6 and Q1 Labs, with no assistance from government that wasn't loans that were paid with small startup loans when they first started out. Both of those companies sold for over $200 million and employ over 300 people each currently. And they've grown that much in the last 10 years. And they need really creative people to come and work for them, very talented people to come and work for them. And if we turn our province into an industrial wasteland, those kinds of people won't come to New Brunswick anymore. People who come here and create jobs, because it's not big industry that creates the majority of jobs in our economy. It's small to medium-sized businesses. And those businesses will not thrive in an environment like we're going to have if we move forward with the shale gas industry. I think that's a pretty significant thing, and there are far more creative ways that our province can move forward to create jobs. And for the people that are here working in the oil and gas industry, the skills that they have currently would be transferable into those sectors. And they wouldn't have to sit through a meeting like this, which must be incredibly painful to sit here for 3 hours and listen to all of us who are really dead set against what it is that they do for a living. I mean, I have to commend them for being here, because it took a lot of courage to do that. And I don't think it's fair that you have to go through that, because our government is so uncreative that they can't come up with ways that will make our province a better place to live. In commenting on the document, the recommendations for public discussion, I guess when I looked at the document, when I saw it on the internet, the thing I was most interested in seeing was how these regulations that are being proposed were going to be enforced. So I went all the way through the document and come to 12.2, assessing enforcement capabilities. And this is the only thing in the entire document regarding enforcement. And without any kind of enforcement, no regulation is worth anything. And here's what I read. The province should regularly assess the anticipated level of oil and gas activities and ensure that sufficient inspection and enforcement tools and resources are available. Note, additional recommendations will be contained in an enforcement plan that is being developed by the Natural Gas Group under separate cover. Now, we've been hearing now, I think, for at least 2 years about how the government is working on the most stringent regulations in North America. Finally, we have a document that comes out that has 1 paragraph on enforcing enforcement capabilities. And if we look at New Brunswick's track record in terms of enforcing environmental regulations that already exist, and being a human resource consultant, I always look at past performance indicating what future performance is going to be like. I'll take a simple example, which was the 30-meter buffer zone on rivers where you're not supposed to cut. Very simple, no large multinational companies involved there. And when I called the Department of Environment in St. John regarding one of those issues, they said, we've been told we're not allowed to go out and inspect for this because we don't have enough people. If someone calls us, then we'll investigate. And people don't get fined, they're not required to remediate. So if something this simple can't be done, how can you expect the people in the province of New Brunswick to have faith that you're going to regulate and enforce something as complicated and complex with a lobby group as powerful as the oil and gas industry? It's not possible. You're not going to gain the trust and confidence because you're not going to do it.
A consultation is a meeting, oh, I'm gonna put my glasses on. A meeting to exchange ideas or talk things through. And to consult, seek information or advice from. And I realize that is what we're doing. Now, if I want to consult my husband about supper, it doesn't take long. But if I want to consult somebody about the shale gas industry, it's going to take a lot longer than a couple of meetings in our province to do this. So a good ruler, one of the sentences that are given for the word consult is, a good ruler consults the interests and feelings of their people. And I really don't feel like the government cares about the feelings, the emotional well-being of the people of our province, of the people that not only live in rural areas, because our food comes from our rural areas. And I'm so impressed with the fact that so many young families are now starting to build farms up that have been abandoned by past owners. But I'll tell you, I have a good friend who had built up a farm in Coles Island and who now has moved to Manitoba and is starting a farm there. And I know one of the reasons that he has moved. And this is one of the reasons that they have chosen to go there. So we may lose some of our folks to Alberta for oil and gas jobs, which, by the way, there's a really high incident of addictions and problems in Alberta because of what's going on. Anyway, I won't go there. So I would implore you that you had 14 months to consult with each other to come up with recommendations. Please give us more time to have consultation, meaningful consultation that we can talk back and forth, like the citizens of New Brunswick.
Here is an article from January 26th, CBC News, Lapierre defends shale gas public sessions. Okay, my issue with this is, the first line is, as a series of public meetings on shale gas development in New Brunswick wraps up, the chair is defending his decision to host them in small communities. So my question is, we've been told many times, Dr. Lapierre, that you sent this information to someone else, and they haven't given you a decision on this. But in this article, you are the person that makes the decision.
I do not make those decisions.
Okay.
But I did.
So what that is an error.
I did forward the comments to the government officials.
Okay, then my question is, did you send a rebuttal? Like, did you send a comment to the CBC stating that there is an error in this so they could reprint it? Because I printed this yesterday, and they could have changed it if you'd sent a comment in and you cared enough.
I did not send a comment. In fact, I didn't read it.
Oh, really? You don't read your own articles to see what is
So,
being
Mr.
presented?
Hood, can we really focus our comments here?
This is about democracy, and this is about a consultation, and I know you're frustrated with me, and I don't know why, and I'm happy to talk with you about it anytime, but the press has to cover this issue. This issue has no comments from any other experts but Dr. Lapierre. Why isn't the press going to a political science professor to ask about what the consultation process is all about, and if they're following it? If the press can't give balanced information, then we're only getting the government side. And I've pretty much mostly only seen the government side from the press, and that disappoints me. Does anybody disagree with me? For example,
Just 1 second, Dr. Lapierre wants to comment.
I would just like to say that I can't tell the press what to print. They ask questions, they print what they want. You should know that by now.
but if they do print something that's wrong, you can tell them, and they will put in a rebuttal. I have done that before, and they have put a statement in that changes the story. I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but that's an important thing when you're dealing with press. I personally don't think you should be addressing the press at all. It's like being a judge. You shouldn't comment on the process that you're in the middle of and be making comments. So you shouldn't have the press at all. You can talk to the press once you have submitted your report, but as a judge-type role in our society, judges don't talk to the press until the trial's done. As far as I'm concerned, until your work is done, you shouldn't be talking to the press except to be encouraging people to come out and be part of the democratic process. That would be the only thing that I think someone in your position should make as a statement. Does anybody disagree with me on that? And I can't decide if who is arranging this whole thing is either completely incompetent or highly manipulative. I'm not sure which one it is, because this is an ad for the meetings that I found in the Daily Gleaner on Saturday, June 16th. The closest meeting to Fredericton was in Durham Bridge on June 11th. What a waste of taxpayers' money to put this ad in the paper on the 16th. So, is whoever's doing this incompetent or manipulative? That was my question. Which one is it?
Well,
It has to be
I'll
one
tell you
or the
what,
other.
we prefer is not personal attacks, and maybe you could continue to make your comments. You have 35 seconds left.
I'm just stating point. From my perspective as a citizen, it looks like whoever's arranging this is either incompetent, I'm not blaming any one person, but the PR firm that is setting this up is either very manipulative or very incompetent. Because to not put something out with fair notice is a waste of taxpayer money. Okay? And the next comment that I would have, well, actually I'm going to go, there seemed to be an issue with people surfing the internet and getting their information and the credibility of that information, and again, one of the articles with Dr. Lapierre. And so I would like to state that Before this, I came as a citizen, but today I'm here as a small business owner. I run a design and consulting firm, working with folks to build houses with renewable energy, and a local contractor and I have just created what we think is the most energy efficient house in, if not New Brunswick, Canada. The heating bill for that house is $10 a month, okay? This we've done in a way that anyone building a new house can afford. Does anybody at the government care about the projects we're doing? And I can list off, as long as my arm, the small business owners that are struggling in this province, that like me, are working under the poverty line to do what is the right thing, and then the government comes in and sets up these systems for industrial players that take their money out of the province, okay? So what I want is a real consultation process where you come to us at the beginning and ask us about economic development, not about some deal, done deal with some partners that you've done behind the scenes. I want, if David Allward, and this message isn't really to you, the gas board, it's to the public, and it's to David Allward and the politicians. He won the election on consultation. If you want to say that you believe in consultation, put out a policy paper on consultation. I have yet to see a policy paper for consultation. Montreal has a policy paper for consultation. Can I ask your group, Dr. Lapierre, what policy paper have you been given for consultation?
This consultation process is about the discussion document and 160 recommendations, and you have 30 seconds left.
But if the government, any policy that the government undertakes, there is usually a policy document behind it if there's any substance to it. For example, several people have talked about relationships with the provincial government and where they feel comfortable in coming up to these meetings. And I've talked to some people in the provincial government that I want them to sign something, and they refused to because they said, I work for the provincial government. If you're going to have a consultation policy, you should make it clear what the damage is for the provincial employees that they consult. You need, like, Montreal has a consultation policy. Why can't New Brunswick have one if it's a value?
I'll tell you what, if you give me that documentation, I'll give it to we have an individual who's in charge of engagement and consultation, and I'll certainly give that to her.
And I asked for information to be sent to me after the Chipman meeting on the 6th,
Yeah.
and I've yet to see anything.
And I'm not sure who you asked that to.
It was the minister of, it was the person from the Department of Finance, and so you might get back to people, but I wasn't got back to, and so I wouldn't trust that you're going to get back. People are going to get back to you because they didn't get back to me.
Give me your information, and I guarantee you I'll get back to you.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hood.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Heather Scott, and I'm a concerned citizen from Hampton. And like you lovely people on the committee, I've been here since 4:30. Well, you were probably here earlier setting up, but I thought it was only fair that I come and read your pamphlets, and I've done that as best I could since 4:30. Being an English major, I read the material quite quickly, and I just want to point out a point. Nothing is foolproof, and because we're human, and because science is performed by humans, there will be mistakes, and we can't afford to have mistakes in our water system. So whatever that mistake is, it is going to happen, and that's noted in your case studies, the booklet, and lessons learned. What I noted was that the lessons learned are that you're supposed to test and monitor. That was the overall impression that I got from each of the case studies. Testing and monitoring the problems that other people have had just tell us that they're happening here, or whether they're happening or not. But because they've happened in other places, we know they probably will happen here as well. So it just seems like a backwards approach to look for mistakes rather than evaluate the whole industry before we bring it here. And I think a lot of people have already done that, so I won't cover those points. What I noted when I was going through the literature is that there were mistakes, grammatical mistakes in the books themselves and in your promotional displays. So if we can have human errors in the promotional material, of course we're going to have human errors in the fracking process and in the boreholes themselves. I noticed on one of your displays called Water Resources and Natural Gas Development in New Brunswick, the banner didn't spell fracking properly, it called it fracing. That's another term? Okay, that's an industry term. Okay, I give you that. And in the list of references, the book, which cited all the references, there were 3 where you're supposed to underline the title of the article. Because I'm an English major, I noticed that 3 of the titles were not underlined. So there's an error. If we can have an error in the promotional material, which should be perfect, then there's going to, that just points to the guarantee that there will be human error in this process. And we can't afford it. We can't afford mistakes. It just sounds like the government's planning to go ahead, and you're looking for our input on the regulations, and most people don't want to go ahead, and I think we needed a process before this to ask us whether we wanted to do this or not. It reminds me of the movie The Lorax, where the man in the movie is after making snee, which is this scarf that he can only produce out of the trees. And it seems at the end of the movie, the whole earth is destroyed, and because he's cut down all the trees in his greed. And it reminded me of the shale gas industry and the government's approach to it, that we're looking to rape the earth and pollute it for short-term gain, but we're not looking at the health of our citizens over the long term. I lost my father to cancer at the age of 60, and I know how painful that is to all family members, and I would hate to have other people go through what that is to lose someone in 6 months. So to increase the risk of cancer in our drinking water, which everyone has to drink and use, is unacceptable in my mind. Do we want this mess? No. So why make it in the first place when it's a kind of mess that we can't clean up? It's a kind of mess that's permanent. Why would we want to do this to begin with? And it seems that the government has spent a lot of money in promoting, but they're not taking the concerns of the people and the health of the people seriously. And just an example tonight is that there were no fans and no air conditioning. If the government really cared, they would have had this meeting in a place that had air conditioning. There are a lot of people that stayed because they felt it was really important, but it jeopardizes people's health to be in this kind of heat, I think, for a long time. Annie on the panel talked about how deep water travels for long distances, and so if you're fracking at a deep level, then that water is traveling, according to what you said, at long distances. I wrote down, you said that the deeper the water, the further it travels.
The further traveled it is. Sorry.
The further traveled it is.
Usually, but we're talking about like the first 200, 300 meters. The water that's at depth is even more further traveled. It's hundreds of thousands of years old, millions of years old in some cases.
And you also said that there's no interplay between the levels of water?
Well, not between the connate water at depth and the fresh water that we drink. No natural interaction.
That we've studied, that we know about. But water is a fluid entity, and ground is a porous entity. Even rock is porous. So there's got to be the travel of water between the intervals. I don't think it's something that we haven't thought about or studied.
There's researchers that disagree with you.
Okay, I had an issue with the setbacks of 250 meter. I think that's ridiculous. If water travels at long distances, then of course 250 meters is nothing, yes. I wrote a letter, yes.
Just ask you, ma'am, just if you could.
Very brief. My last point, I wrote a letter that I'm going to read. It's 2 pages. I'll do it quickly and be short about it. Bev, I sent it to Dr. Lapierre through the GNB site, David Alward, Stephen Harper, and I sent copies to Rob Moore, our MP, and Senator Joe Day. And when I got a response back from Bev Harrison, so anyone who would like, they're creating a list of people who are against this, I'm assuming to present in the legislature, and he seemed quite receptive to my letter. Dear sirs, My father always told me to use a KISS formula, so I will keep this short. I'm sure that you have had many letters citing many facts and figures about the negatives of the proposed shale gas industry in New Brunswick, and I have read many of these too. My late father, who was a university educator, told me that simple is easier on everyone. Therefore, I am writing to tell you to say that I am thoroughly and completely opposed to any type of shale gas industry in New Brunswick, and I call on our provincial and federal governments to take steps to ban shale gas exploration. I do not want to have to worry about my water being polluted. I do not want to have to worry about moving in order to avoid the pollution. I do not want to have the property I'm living on to be probably devalued over the long term. I do not want to worry about my future health or the future health of my children and grandchildren. I do not want to leave my extended family and my home province in search of land outside the province that is not polluted by fracking. There are enough chemicals in our environment and in the foods we eat. We do not need to add more into the drinking water. That is to say, into the ground, which will undoubtedly find its way into the water supply. I chose to return to live in New Brunswick as a young adult both because my family is here and because it offers one of the best qualities of life of anywhere in the world. And I want to be able to stay here permanently. Why would I want to have our top-notch quality of life so severely sacrificed? I am unemployed currently, and my husband, who is a veteran, is a full-time student, so he is unemployed as well. We have 3 children to feed and another on the way, and luckily we've had support from my family, so haven't had to use the government system for support. Although life has dealt us many hard blows, and although we are reasonably well educated, both with 1 university degree as well as a college diploma in a trade, we would not trade anything in the world to get a job in the shale gas industry, even though a job right now would be really nice. I do not want to trade my health or the health of future generations for cash. It is useless. Please do the right thing for all of us. Say no to shale gas and the entire shale gas industry, for our sake, for our health's sake, for nature's sake, for our country's sake, for our region's sake, for everyone's sake. Please be smart, be responsible, be long-range minded. The short term may get people elected quickly, but the long term may kill us all slowly. People like the idea of jobs, of course, we all do, but jobs will not sustain us if we all get sick, or at least a few of our family members whom we love and whom we will have to take care of get sick with cancer from the fracking chemicals we will ingest. This is not something that will rectify itself over time. These chemicals in our water supply will be permanent. Please make sure this is a sound decision. Nothing is more important than our health. Respectfully, Heather Scott, and P.S. even my children who are ages 4 to 10 understand that this is not a wise thing to do. Although I have not talked with them a lot about shale gas, they have continued to bring the subject up themselves. They are very concerned, and even at this young age, understand this, the absolute importance of clean water. And no amount of regulations in my mind can make fracking safe. Thank you.
If the operators, somebody that's going to be drilling a well, lease water, is there a time limit? There's a few parts to this question. What if their operation closes prematurely? Does the lease remain in effect, and for how long? And if you can kind of imagine the scenario of a company with a lumber lease in New Brunswick, and they close a mill, and then they can keep cutting lumber and sending it wherever.
What do you mean by lease water?
Somebody would contract for water, one of the drilling companies.
They would need a permit to extract water or to pump water or to purchase water. Right now, New Brunswick doesn't have a water allocation policy. Like Alberta, it's sort of transferable. They can sell their water rights. That type of framework isn't in place in the province right now, so that doesn't happen. So it's industry by industry. So if you want to develop a well and extract it, you have an approval for it. You might be able to sell the property with the well that's approved. But if it's a change in the use, that may or may not trigger another review of it. So
the regulations don't have anything specific in regards to the water.
Well, they have to be approved sources, and so in terms of water allocation and that type of water permitting. That's something that we're saying that should be looked at within the water strategy at the provincial level, and also a water strategy being developed for this industry alone. Yeah.
My name is Audie Forgrave. I'm with the Fall Ditch Lake. I'm the chairperson. Normally I don't need a mic. However, my background, I'm a retired funeral director, 25 years in the business. I've seen what cancer can do. I've dealt with families who have lost loved ones to cancer. I've unfortunately had to embalm bodies that died from cancer, and it's not a pleasant job. So yes, I can feel for the people who have had cancer and who are going through cancer treatments at this time. The recommendations that we have been given, the said document has many loopholes in it as far as I'm concerned. For example, on page 8, under the heading of Purpose and Scope, the paragraph states the following: the recommendations in this document are intended to apply to oil and gas activities and facilities located on either the privately owned or privately owned land or preferentially owned land, unless otherwise indicated. The recommendations are not intended to apply retroactive to oil and gas facilities that have already been approved and constructed. Executive summary is available under a separate cover. There's a loophole in that statement that we could drive not only a transport truck through, but we could also drive several seismic thumper trucks through, side by side. Now, I don't know who wrote this up, but I am suggesting, and I have also suggested to Bruce Norton, the Minister of Natural Resources, in a confrontation with him a while ago, that this clause leaves open to any company who now has permits or anything else in this province that they can tell the government to go pound sand.
Yep, that's right.
Because it's not retroactive. They tried to tell me, oh no, they would have to go through EIA, they would have to do this, they would have to do that. That is a bunch of hogwash. Because any lawyer that was worth his salt could take them and say, fellas, forget it. The loophole's there, and we are going to use it. Just as Mr. Irving has done with the woods. And I not only blame the minister, but I blame the minister's staff and his colleagues for not checking back information and contracts before they let him come out and speak and say, oh no, we're going to close it down. His department needs to wake up and smell the coffee. His department and the Department of the Environment need to get their act together and not be flip-flopping all over the place when it comes to making decisions. Not only does it make the province look bad, it makes the people in the province very angry. Gentlemen, I thank you for your time. I also note that we do not have a lawyer with you tonight, which is God's blessing, because maybe you can say something that people can understand. I sat through the hearings in Sussex and seen how the government people answered the questions, but they had a lawyer at their elbow that said, oh no, you can't do this, you can't say that. And I'm glad to see that Annie's been able tonight to speak out and be able to state a few things without saying I don't know. Thank you very much.
My name's Emma Hebb. I'm from St. George, New Brunswick, and I work in the environmental nonprofit sector as a community-based watershed management environmental project coordinator. So I first would like to say that I am personally very opposed to fracking. I believe in the precautionary principle, and I believe in this case the overwhelming evidence is we shouldn't go forward. But I do appreciate what you tried to do with the regulations. And since that's what we're supposed to be here to discuss, that's why I drove an hour and a half after work to get here. So one of the things that I noticed is that you constantly say that we should, the company should have to go to the provincial lab for the analysis. I work with the provincial lab in my professional work, and I know they don't have the capability at the provincial lab to monitor the organic contaminants that would be required in order to monitor this industry. So saying that we're going to send it to them is great, but I know that right now they basically, as far as the capacity thing, they can only do hydrocarbons, which wouldn't include the surfactants, the anti-corrosion inhibitors that would be included in fracking fluid. I also kind of take issue with the idea that what's been said here is that because we're fracking kilometers underground, the fact that water is only 200, 300 meters underground doesn't matter, because to me a kilometer is underneath 200 or 300 meters, so you're going to have to build something through the water, and there is the case of that'll break, and I understand that's why you looked at well integrity, but at the same time, if the well breaks, it does contaminate the water, so I don't think that saying that the gas is underneath the water negates the fact that things that are in that well could potentially get into the water table. Also, I was recently at a meeting in Penfield as part of my job that was a community-based meeting in which the community was outraged that the regional office of Department of Environment had given an approval for a fish compost facility to operate on the Penfield aquifer, which feeds all of Penfield, also the town of Blacks Harbor, which anyone who's from Charlotte County knows that's where Cook's and Connersville, there's two major industries are. And I think the reason that was done is because our aquifers are not delineated. There was no way for the people in the St. John office to know that there was an aquifer there. And the fact that that exists now before this industry comes into effect means that you really need to look at how are you managing source water protection. I also do work on Shamcook Lake, which is the drinking water supply for the town of St. Andrews, and it has had in recent years cyanobacteria blooms, and there are hundreds of thousands of toxins, none of which the provincial lab can test for, that happen in cyanobacteria blooms. People in St. Andrews are drinking that water every day, and we don't necessarily know that they're safe. We know every test that we do comes out fine, but we don't know that for sure. And there isn't the resources and there isn't the capacity in the Department of Environment now to deal with those issues now. So bringing in a whole new industry that's even more, that requires so much water, that's very water intensive, and that you've said we already don't have allocations. We haven't even legislated the provisional water classifications that are part of our water classification regulation now. So to say that we're going to bring in a new industry, a new player, and everything's going to be fine because we're going to have regulations, we don't have the capacity to deal with the regulations we have now. So that's an issue. I would recommend to the panel that we look into, if you are going to acquire it, to go to the provincial lab. Obviously there has to be capacity at the provincial lab in order to deal with the testing that you want them to do, which...
I'll just comment on that.
Yeah.
They do subcontract to other labs if it's something that's not being done at the lab. So that is
Right.
what they're doing. And it's about having the data in the database automatically. That's part of why they're using the lab. So
Right, okay, so they'll subcontract to RBC, and I'm a lab geek, so I understand what that means, and you know, if you want to do it that way, that's fine, but I'm just saying, if you're going to create an industry, do you want to subcontract all that out? Or do you want to develop the capacity internally? And the truth is, private well owners don't even monitor their water the way they should now, and there isn't the capacity, there isn't the help out there, there isn't the education out there, and so we already have water issues in New Brunswick without this industry.
Exactly.
So if we're bringing in a new water intensive industry, we have to look at making sure we're looking after ourselves now before we bring in a new player. Thank you.
Years ago, I was studying courses that were cross-listed with a master's program in environmental impact assessment. And through that experience, I learned that those people who are going to go out and work in environmental impact assessment were going to be doing research and doing public consultations where maybe they were going to find a project that was actually going to destroy communities and destroy ecosystems. But within that role, they don't have the power to go back and say, hey, this is going to destroy communities and destroy ecosystems, let's bring it back to the drawing board. That's not their role. All they're able to do is make recommendations. And I don't know how accountable industries are to follow those recommendations. I'm not really convinced. So really my point is, or some of these people, you know, who are going into that, they really want to work at changing that from within, and I wish them luck. I don't know if that's changed in the last 3 years. But yeah, my point is just that I think that as it stands right now, the environmental impact assessment process that we have is only symbolic, and that we shouldn't be placing all our hope in that, and that really our hope needs to be with these community level grassroots movements.